I desire to prosper. I have complete confidence in the effectiveness of the psychophone for this purpose. The sound of the psychophone lulls me to sleep, but my unconscious mind hears and is deeply impressed by these affirmations. I have a strong consciousness in my power to achieve whatever I desire. The things of this world are for me.
That was a recording from the 1920s from a special device called the psychophone. No, it was not a telephone for psychopaths. It was basically an alarm clock combined with a record player. Before you went to bed, you would set the timer on the psychophone, and then while you were sleeping, it would play this audio containing messages of love and positivity and motivation, and your subconscious, unconscious mind would absorb these messages and transform your life. But what a load of nonsense. I mean, everybody knows that you can't listen to things while you're asleep, and you certainly can't learn anything. I mean, imagine if you could go to sleep playing English classes and then wake up fluent. It's science fiction. Or is it? First, let's talk about how the brain learns new things, specifically vocabulary. So, I want to teach you a new word. Skeletobe. Now, interestingly, when you learn a new word, the first thing that your brain processes is the sound, that auditory information. And then the next thing that your brain does is look for similarities. You see, things do not exist in isolation in the brain. The brain wants to make connections. So, when I tell you the word skeletobe, you probably think of skeletons. And then when you're thinking about skeletons, you're probably also thinking about monsters and Halloween and witches laughing and creaking doors and ghosts. All of these associations light up in the brain when I tell you the word skeletobe. But I know what you're thinking. Well, skeletobe and skeleton are very similar. All you did was change a few letters. But that's exactly my point. Lots of vocabulary is very similar. For example, if I tell you the word cat, you don't automatically think of a bat or a hat or fat. These words all sound very similar. They only differ by one letter. But because we know exactly what we mean, we have stored them in different categories. They are connected in different ways. So why am I telling you this? Well, that word skeletobe is actually part of an experiment from 2013. Researchers taught participants lists of invented words like skeletobe, which were very similar to real English words like skeleton. And they discovered that participants could very quickly recognize these words that had existing associations. But then something really fascinating happened. As they continued to test them multiple times over the course of 8 days, their reaction times actually became slower. They became worse at identifying these associated words. But why? That doesn't make any sense. They should get faster with more practice. The reason is that these invented words started to separate from the real words, and they started to become real words with unique meanings and unique connections in the brain. So therefore, the decision between the two was more difficult. And this tells us that learning new things requires time and multiple exposures. But what has all of this got to do with sleep? Well, now we know that learning requires multiple exposures and time. And we sleep every day for about 8 hours. Sleep is really important for learning. Multiple studies have shown that children learn more when they sleep. Now, maybe you think that sleep is just one long period of being unconscious. Darkness, nothing is happening. But we actually sleep in 4 distinct stages. From the light sleep of stage 1 and 2 to the beautiful, slow brainwave sleep of stage 3 to the almost awake REM sleep of stage 4. And we don't just experience these stages once throughout the night. We actually repeat these 4 stages in cycles. You can see the cycles really clearly here in emus as they move from slow wave to REM to awake and then back to slow wave. And it's this slow wave or stage 3 sleep where some really interesting things can happen. Like, for example, language learning. In 2014, Swiss researchers published this paper. They taught the participants who didn't speak Dutch 120 Dutch words.
Winst. Winst.
And then they tested them to see how many they could remember. And then they sent them to sleep. Now, while they were in that stage 2 and stage 3 slow brainwave sleep, they started to play them Dutch vocabulary. 30 words that they had got correct in the test, 30 words they got wrong in the test, and 30 completely new words. They played a new word about every 3 seconds for 90 minutes. So, while they were sleeping, each participant heard that Dutch vocabulary 10 to 11 times. Then, when they woke up, they tested them again. And the results are incredible. They had a 10% increase in their ability to remember that vocabulary. And that's not all. In February this year, this paper was published. The researchers performed a simple but beautiful experiment. They created a list of pairs of words with one real English word and one completely invented word. For example, cork and arrow, or house and tofa. Then, while the participants were sleeping, they played them these pairs of words in alternating ways 4 times. For example, cork, arrow, arrow, cork, cork, arrow, arrow, cork, house, tofa, tofa, house, house, tofa, tofa, house. Okay. And then when the participants woke up, they asked them some questions, but they asked them questions about these words. For example, does an arrow fit in a shoebox? Yes or no? Does a tofa fit in a shoebox? Yes or no? And they discovered that the participants performed significantly better than chance. They had learned completely new vocabulary and associations while they were asleep. But wait a minute, this is too good to be true. I mean, if we can learn in our sleep, then we can become fluent in English without any effort. Unfortunately, the catch is that these techniques are very, very sensitive to our sleep cycle. They only work during specific moments of peaks and troughs in our brain activity. So, if you wanted to use these techniques at home, you would need an EEG machine and a group of scientists to monitor your brainwave activity and play you audio at exactly the right moment. It's just not realistic. You could achieve much better results by making some simple lifestyle changes, like a healthy diet and really good quality sleep. I'm Christian, this is Canguro English, and I'll see you in class.